Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 15th Policy Consultation Forum of the Seoul Initiative Network on Green Growth. My name is Waravit. I am your technical facilitator for today. Before we start the event, I want to go through some quick tips to make the virtual experience smooth. So this meeting will be recorded and the record will be made available to public after this forum is over. For the people who are speaking, please make sure that your microphone is connected to your audio so we can hear your voice properly. And we have participants joining us from a different location around the world. So I kindly ask you to close your microphone and your camera while you're not speaking so we can help preserve everyone's bandwidth internet connection. There will be a summary of the PowerPoint and the note, which will be made available as well after this forum is in. And lastly, we encourage you to participate by commenting or asking questions in the chat box. So without further ado, I am passing the floor to Ms. Eun Jung Yoon, who will be the moderator of today. Ms. Eun Jung Yoon, the floor is yours.
Yes, Excellencies and ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening across your different time zones. Welcome to the 15th Policy Consultation Forum of Seoul Initiative Network on Green Growth. This event is hosted by ASCAP in collaboration with the Ministry of Environment in the Republic of Korea. My name is Eun Jung Yoon, the NLL expert of the Environment and Development Division at ASCAP, and I'm honored to be your MC for the forum today. Before we begin, I would like to go over our program briefly. We have a very substantive agenda today. We will share the ideas on opportunities for green recovery from the COVID-19, especially the Green New Deal strategy. After our opening remarks, we will welcome the keynote address by the Director of the Environment and Development Division of ASCAP. Then we will welcome 5 speakers to ignite these conversations, focusing on the efforts and best practice of green recovery from the COVID-19 in Asia and the Pacific. Their presentations will be followed by the interactive dialogue segment. Now, it is my pleasure to invite Mr. Stefanos Fotiou, Director of the Environment and Development Division of ASCAP, to deliver his welcome address. Mr. Fotiou, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Eun Jung, and thank all for joining the 15th Seoul Initiative Network on Green Growth Forum. Since the SYNC launched in 2006, the Policy Dialogue Forum has taken place every year for 15 years to share ideas and best practices on green growth and sustainable development. And on behalf of the United Nations ESCAP, I would like to thank the government of the Republic of Korea for the continued support for the Seoul Initiative project. And I must say here that this is one of the longest and most sustainable initiatives that ESCAP is running. All member states are experiencing right now unprecedented economic challenges because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And at one point, ironically, we saw that air pollution was temporarily improving and fossil fuels usage was also decreasing. But unfortunately, we see that as the economy is coming back, there's a V-shaped return to both the impacts of air pollution and carbon emissions from the countries. So we need to utilize the current crisis as an opportunity to strengthen climate resilience by investing in low carbon, long-term perspectives. So we need investments in climate-friendly measures that they will not only drive the recovery from the COVID-19, but also accelerate the transition towards a green economy. In line with these efforts, I think it's very positive that we see some global action. The EU, for example, has approved the most ambitious green stimulus package in sync with the EU's Green Deal strategy in June, one of the biggest financial packages on Green Deal. And South Korea also announced the Korean Green New Deal, which aims to promote the development of environmental friendly infrastructure with unprecedented investments in both cases. So I do hope that the forum today will provide an opportunity to broaden insights, share best practices on green recovery, and consider implementing proper policies in the countries and organizations for building back better, and I might say also building back different on a more green and sustainable path. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fortier, for highlighting the ASCAP's commitment and importance for green recovery in Asia and the Pacific. Now, I would like to welcome the message from Mr. Seok-tae Hwang, Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Environment of the Republic of Korea, the donor country of the Seoul Initiative Network project.
Mr. Stefanos Fortier, Director of Environment and Development Division of UNESCOP, Mr. Jang Jun-young, CEO of the Korea Environment Corporation, and distinguished participants, welcome to the 15th Policy Consultation Forum of Seoul Initiative Network on Green Growth. I would like to thank UNESCOP and the Singh Secretariat of the Korea Environment Corporation for the hard work in preparing this forum despite the global COVID-19 pandemic. This year marks the 50th anniversary of the Singh. Since 2005, this initiative has dedicated to knowledge sharing and capacity building for environmentally sustainable development across Asia and the Pacific. I'm very pleased that we have decided to extend this meaningful joint work between Korea, UNESCOP, and the member states for another 5 years to come. Ladies and gentlemen, it is almost a year since we first identified the outbreak of COVID-19, but we could not put an end to the COVID-19 yet. The unprecedented crisis is affecting every aspect of our life and changing business as usual. Thus, we are meeting online today instead of gathering physically. Today's human health crisis is deeply intertwined with persisting climate and ecological crisis. And in Korean language, the word crisis is a combination of two different meanings. One is risk and the other is opportunity. As such, crisis always comes with an opportunity. We need to understand that this global pandemic and climate crisis provide us with an opportunity to move forward in the direction of low carbon and going beyond a carbon neutral future. In July 2020, the Korean government announced the Korean New Deal as a new national development strategy, as well as a comprehensive stimulus package to recover from COVID-19. One of the deal's two components is Green New Deal, and it includes bold action plans for green economic transition, including clean energy, green infrastructure, future mobility, and green industry. And earlier this month, Korea declared our long-term climate ambition to become carbon neutral by 2050. We believe that major investment in carbon neutrality, backed by technology innovations and institutional reforms, will create a new growth engines and jobs in our economy. We are now on track towards this great transformation and will be happy to share our experiences and lessons learned with Asia Pacific neighbors. We would like to also to listen to the stories of many different countries and learn from the experiences. I'm very much looking forward to many productive discussions at this forum. The discussions would also be incorporated in the Sing pilot projects and contribute to enhancing the capacity of member states to win the battle against the COVID-19 and climate crisis. Let me finish my remarks by giving my sincere thanks once again to ESCOP and KECO for your hard work to make this forum possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Huang, and thank the Ministry of Environment of the Republic of Korea for kind and continuous support for the Seoul Initiative Network project. Now, I would like to welcome the message from Mr. Junyoung Chang, President of the Korea Environment and Corporation.
존경하는 환경부 황석태 실장님, 스테파노스 포티유 UNSCAP 환경개발국장님, 그리고 제15차 서울 이니셔티브 국제포럼에 참가해 주신 참석자 여러분, 감사합니다. 한국환경공단 이사장 장준영입니다. 전 세계가 직면하고 있는 코로나 대유행이라는 초유 사태를 맞이해서 불가피하게 이렇게 비대면으로 마스크를 쓰고 여러분들을 대하게 되었습니다. 한편으로는 대단히 송구스럽지만 또한 다른 한편으로는 어쩔 수 없는 우리의 이 현실을 직면하고 우리 모두 함께 이러한 대유행의 위기를 극복해 주시기를 간절히 빌어 마지 않습니다. 우리 한국 정부에서는 이러한 코로나 대유행의 시기를 맞이해서 새로운 정책 패러다임을 구축하기 위해 디지털 뉴딜과 그린 뉴딜이라는 새로운 정책을 준비하여 왔고, 이번 포럼의 주제로 녹색 뉴딜, 코로나19로부터의 녹색 회복의 기회로 정하였습니다. 지금 아시아 태평양 각국이 직면하고 있고 이 위기를 극복하기 위한 많은 노력들을 기울이고 있는 이 코로나 사태를 맞이해서 새롭게 우리가 한 단계 더 나아갈 수 있기를 공동의 노력으로 모색하여야만 할 것입니다. 여러분들께서 우리의 현실을 인정하고 또한 동시에 이를 극복하기 위한 노력을 같이 함께 모색해 주십사 하는 부탁 말씀을 드리고 싶습니다. 내년에는 부디 우리가 함께 모여 머리를 맞대고 공동의 주제를 논의하고 극복하기 위한 협력 방안을 같이 도출할 수 있는 그러한 국제 포럼이 될 수 있기를 소망합니다. 오늘 이 국제 포럼에 참가해 주신 참석자 여러분, 여러분들의 건강과 행운 그리고 번영을 진심으로 기원합니다. 감사합니다.
We really appreciate these remarks from the Korea Environment Corporation, and let me reiterate KECO's commitment to the Seoul Initiative Network project as a secretariat for more than 10 years. After these opening remarks, I would like to invite Mr. Fortiu, Director of the Environment and Development Division of the ASCAP, to take the floor again to deliver his keynote address. Mr. Fortiu will kindly moderate the session after this address. Mr. Fortiu, please go ahead. The floor is yours again.
Thank you very much, Eun Jung, and I will try to share my screen now to go through a short presentation. Colleagues, if for any reason my screen is not visible, let me know. So I would like to use just the next 10 minutes to share some ideas on how we can use the concept of going back to nature for building back better on our efforts to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, and also not only building back better, but building back different. Because one of the things that we really need to avoid, I think, is to go back to the business as usual that brought us in this situation. And this situation, the COVID pandemic, is nothing more than another impact, another effect of the unsustainable human activities. The COVID-19 is a disease that it's called a zoonosis, and it's a disease that is caused by a virus that transfers from the wildlife to the human population. And pandemics such as the COVID-19 are an outcome actually of how we have altered the natural environment with urbanization, land use changes, the work of extractive industries, and it reflects the way we grow, trade, and consume food and other commodities, and the way we cover our energy needs. And we have seen in the past that more than half of the primary drivers of disease are actually because of environmental issues and unsustainable environmental management. Why we have been in a situation like this, why we have altered, and I would even say destroy the environment in a way that now it gets back to the development process and has a negative impact to the health. Because, first of all, we never use the carrying capacity of environmental resources and particular ecosystems when we do development planning. So we design by taking nature as granted and without understanding that there are physical capacities of the ecosystems and actually of the planet that we need to respect. The second thing is that we have very unsustainable consumption and production models. After the Industrial Revolution, even if we had a lot of changes in the technology, we still have an economy that is oriented through fossil fuel burning and production that it's not environmentally friendly, and consumption models that they are only promoting overconsumption. The fourth barrier is that there's a finance system that promotes a brown economy. So most of the money that they are managed by the global finance system, and I'm talking mostly about the private finance system, are diverted to activities that they are polluting. And also, there's a very big wrong system of subsidies and incentives that actually destroy the environment. It's estimated that globally at least $500 billion is given to subsidies for fossil fuels, for other activities that they destroy our ecosystems. So we need to build back better and differently and not going back to the business as usual. And the UN has put together a framework for the immediate socioeconomic response to the COVID-19. And this framework is explicit on the need to focus on the environment. And the framework highlights that the success of the post-pandemic recovery will be determined by a better understanding and handling of the environmental risks. So how we can do this building back better being green? I think we can use two conceptual elements and frameworks, one of the green growth and the second of the planetary health. And I'm starting with the green growth because green growth is what has given actually life to the policy dialogue we have today and we have the last 15 years. So green growth, which is a strategy that looks at how we can sustain the economic growth and the creation of jobs, and at the same time we improve the management of natural resources. And it has almost 15 years ago identified 5 specific areas where we can promote this concept, from improving the quality of growth and maximizing net growth. Something very important, which is to close the gap between economic and ecological efficiencies. So we need to have products of high value that they are using less resources and they are producing less impact. How we can turn green into actually business opportunity. We see how many sectors today they're investing in green and how well they do either in the stock market or the return of investment. How we can plan and design eco-efficient infrastructure, and actually how we can take all this together in long-term, low-carbon national development plans. And green growth is certainly one important entry point on building back better and greener and differently. Another entry point is the framework of planetary health, a relatively new approach that it looks at the health of human civilization together with the state of the natural system, the natural environment on which actually our human civilization depends. And planetary health advocates for some very simple, I would say, but extremely important and systemic things. One is that we need to reestablish a symbiotic relation between humans and ecosystems. And I would say particularly the ocean, which is something extremely important for Asia Pacific. We need also to stop harmful environmental practices and policies. Most of them are financial, there are policies that support these polluting practices. And also we need to take nature into account and to use the physical capacity of ecosystems to frame financial policies. So there's a tendency that we say that you create in neoclassical economics, the tendency is that you create a market and then the sky is the limit. The sky is not really the limit. The limit is the physical capacity of ecosystems to afford human activities and at the same time retain their function. So this is what we need to urgently need to do if we don't want to face another big catastrophe. Some entry points on building back better could be to start looking at ecosystem-based adaptation, focusing on agroecology as a new paradigm for the food sector, which is extremely important, not only for the region, but for the entire planet. Work on nature-based solutions for cities, which actually the hubs that most of the economic activity is happening, and think about innovative solutions for management of pollution. We need to apply some principles on building back better, and some of them is that, for example, the stimulus packages, these billions, or I would say not billions, trillions of dollars that they are given now in different economic sectors should facilitate public investment in decarbonizing the economy. The Secretary General was very clear in the last General Assembly. He said that not a single dollar of stimulus should go to companies that they still using fossil fuels. Also, we need to have recovery plans that they will maintain at least the existing environmental standards and hopefully make them stronger in the future. Also, we need the recovery package to look at tax incentives and smart de-risking investments that they support climate and environmental friendly areas. And let me say one more time, we really need to end the fossil fuel subsidies, and we need to start applying the polluter pays principle by starting probably with a fair carbon price. There are opportunities because stimulus investment could be also support national adaptation plans, the national determined contributions, and other national environmental objectives. We see that cities are very well positioned to help drive transition from the linear to circular economy as they adapt very fast. And maybe this is an opportunity to help cities to build back different and better. Energy efficiency and renewables, they create a lot of jobs, and they will help not only with environmental protection, but with economic and health recovery. And we also can have as entry points well-developed digital system to improve resource efficiency, to improve the way that infrastructure is working, so to contribute to effective policy responses. There's one very big key point on how this could happen, and for me the key point is the global financial system. The 250 trillion of US dollars that they are managed by the global financial system, which needs to start decarbonizing the portfolios, estimate climate risk in all insurance products, and make sure that we have stronger regulatory frameworks in key sectors like construction, transport, and others. ESCAP is trying to bring things together so we can find responses for COVID that at the same time support the needs of the poor people and they support the greener recovery. And we are really convinced that the only way to address the climate and the biodiversity emergencies that they are just around the corner after this COVID-19 pandemic is to reestablish the relation between nature and human activity and to redesign our financial systems. So thank you very much. And now I'll try to stop sharing my screen and get back to the dialogue. Give me just 1 minute, please, to rearrange my computer here and go back to my script. So in the following segment of the forum, we will have a few guest speakers from selected organizations. And I would like to begin with our first round of speakers to start the discussion on green recovery and best practices in the region. We will begin with Professor Ulrich Floß. I hope I pronounced your name correct, Professor, which is a reader in economics at SOAS University of London and founding director of the SOAS Center for Sustainable Finance. He is the lead author of a 2018 report commissioned by the UN Environment on climate change and the cost of capital in developing countries. Professor Ulrich, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Stefanos, and it's a great pleasure to be with you. And this is indeed a highly relevant discussion we're having now. Let me just try to get my presentation up and running, and I hope you can see it now.
Yes,
properly.
clear and full. Thank you.
Very good. So in my intervention, I will make the case for a transformative crisis response for enhancing resilience. And this is very much in line with the arguments that Stefanos just put forward very convincingly. So the COVID-19 crisis has very clearly exposed the vulnerabilities of our health systems, of our social systems, of our economies. And it has also very dramatically illustrated that we urgently need to be better prepared for disasters. And so there has been a lot of discussion about building back better. And I think one of the main lessons really has to be that we need to increase resilience so that we're better prepared to withstand future pandemics, but of course also the other major looming threat to humanity, which is climate change. And we already are in a climate crisis. I think that has become very clear. And indeed, we do know that the climate crisis is also increasing the likelihood of future pandemics. So this will not be the last one, I fear, we will be experiencing in our lifetime. So short-term crisis responses that clearly have to be geared at protecting jobs and boosting recovery need to be coupled with longer-term strategic goals of mitigating climate change, but also, very importantly, shoring up climate change adaptation and resilience. We really need to see urgent climate action. This is not optional. Climate scientists are very clear. We have around a decade left to bring our planet on a more sustainable course and to avoid global warming. So countries need to invest in mitigation and adaptation to increase their climate resilience. Because even if we are successful in limiting global warming to 1.5 or 2 degrees, the effects of climate change will be dramatic. So we really need a transformative policy response now to mitigate climate change and prepare ourselves what is going to happen in the not too distant future. So we need to strengthen resilience and try to engineer a just transition, because we must not forget the social dimension. If we don't get this right, we will not be able to have successful transformation to a low carbon economy. And there is indeed a great need for boosting resilience, investing in adaptation. in a number of research papers and reports, we have been able to show that governments and firms in more climate vulnerable countries have to pay a higher cost on their debt. They incur a risk premium, a climate risk premium. And this is having very serious implications for both governments and companies to invest in adaptation and resilience and boost growth. And so the very unfortunate situation is that those who have contributed the least to climate change are having to pay twice. They are facing greater physical impacts of climate change, but because of higher vulnerability that is now being priced into financial markets already, they also have to pay higher cost on their capital. And let me just show you two charts from a report we just launched last month. On the left-hand side, you can see a positive relationship between sovereign bond yields and climate vulnerability. So countries that are more vulnerable tend to have to pay a higher cost on their sovereign debt. And on the right-hand side, you can see a negative relationship between, again, sovereign bond yields and a measure of climate resilience. So it clearly shows that countries that are more resilient pay lower cost of capital. And as I said before, we were able to show that this also holds for private corporations. So there is a very strong argument for investing in resilience. And we have also been able to show that climate vulnerability really threatens fiscal sustainability. There are multiple channels through which climate change can pose a threat to macro financial stability and amplify sovereign risk. And it is therefore of the absolute essence that governments work now to climate-proof their economies and their public finances, because otherwise many countries will find themselves in an ever-worsening spiral of climate vulnerability and unsustainable debt burdens. So not acting now is also having very direct impacts on public finances and macro financial stability. And here is a chart from our new report on climate change and sovereign risk, where we go through in quite some detail through different transmission channels, how both physical and transition impacts of climate change can ameliorate macro financial instability. I won't have time now to go into that, but this is something that really every country has to look at because there can be very severe consequences. And identifying the vulnerabilities, investing in resilience, being better able to manage and mitigate climate risks is really crucial. And we need all actors in government, we need central banks, financial supervisors to really play their role. And I would like very much to echo Stefano's point about the importance of aligning the financial system with the climate goals broadly, because if we don't manage to redirect finance to have properly priced in climate risk and so on, we won't be getting this right. So I would also like to reinforce the point that investing in a green recovery that enhances economic resilience makes economic sense also in the short term. There are significant benefits of investing now in resilience, not only in terms of reducing future losses, but we have mounting empirical evidence that shows that investing in green projects can generate more employment and deliver higher short-term returns per dollar spent. And if you haven't seen it, I'd like to draw your attention to the recent World Economic Outlook that came out last month from the IMF. that is highlighting that the green recovery is not only environmentally sensible, but also fundamentally good economic policy, because it lays the foundation for longer term economic success, and that indeed the cost of kind of a green recovery is actually lower than the returns in the short term and long term. And this is really important. So in concluding, I would like to emphasize that we do need a transformative response, because otherwise many countries will find themselves in a permanent crisis mode. Yeah, right now we're all in a crisis mode. We're in the midst of a pandemic. Many climate vulnerable countries have already experienced this permanent crisis mode, but many more countries, and that may also include many middle-income countries, will find themselves in permanent crisis mode with the climate crisis worsening if they don't boost investment in resilience. And of course, poorer countries will need significant international support, because otherwise they will not be able to respond, not least because, as I explained, they're already now facing higher cost of capital. So there needs to be support through international development banks and so on, to really enable each and every country to invest in the resilience they urgently need. And just on a side note, on Monday, we launched a new report calling for debt relief to enable green and inclusive recovery for highly indebted countries, because that, of course, is another big problem. A lot of countries right now are financially completely overstretched, and they will not be able, without debt relief, to invest in a green and inclusive recovery. And this also affects some countries in the Asia Pacific region, but of course in other regions even more. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And here's some references if you're interested.
Thank you very much. With your permission, we will share the presentations with the participants so they will have access to the reference. So thank you very much. It's important to put the finance behind the argument. And I must say this is another very strong message here, that green recovery, it's not only good for the environment, but makes very good economic and financial sense. And that gives me a good opportunity to welcome our second speaker, Ms. Yuri Kim, which is the Deputy Director of the Task Force Team for Green New Deal of the Ministry of Environment of the Republic of Korea. She is in charge of planning and implementing the Green New Deal strategy in Korea. So I could really paraphrase this, and I say that she is in charge of planning a better and more green future. Ms. Kim, the floor is yours for the next 10 minutes.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well, thank you.
It is an honor for me to be giving this presentation, and let me share my slides first. Can you see my slides? Okay.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, now we can see your screen.
Okay, thank you. So my presentation today will be covering 3 main topics. But
can I suggest you put it in presentation mode, if you can? But this is okay also, it's fine.
Is it okay? But yeah. I cannot handle my presentation with my computer right now.
Ms. Kim, yeah. I can handle the presentation for you.
Okay.
because I also have the file in my computer.
Okay, then please. Let me start my presentation now. Okay. So first I will talk about the rise of the climate crisis. The industrialization of our human civilization brought us unprecedented abundance, but at the same time, it also created the shadow of greenhouse gas emissions. With 85% of human activities dependent on fossil fuels, the Earth's carbon dioxide density has risen 1.5 times faster since industrialization. The global temperature is also rising in proportion to the density of Earth's greenhouse gas. The rate of acceleration of this temperature rise has increased by 5 to 12 times compared to before industrialization. The rise of global temperatures is causing abnormal weather events around the world. This shows that something serious is happening with the condition of Earth, our home.
Ms. Kim, you can let us know when you want us to go next slide. You can just say next slide, please, and we can click it for you.
Okay, now I'm going slide 6, actually.
Is this one?
Number 6. Oh, no, before. Please go ahead. One more.
One more back.
Please going back.
What is the title of the slide? Because it's not possible to see the slide number when we are running it. Is this the correct one?
Yes, this is number 6.
Yes.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready, ask him.
Okay, I will start from this slide. So nowadays, the term climate crisis is used more often than the term climate change. This reflects the sense of urgency, as climate change is not simply a change, but is now a crisis. Next, please. In addition, the concept of climate risk has also emerged. It means that climate change is not just a matter related to the environment, but is also directly connected to the real economy and safety of life. Next. Countries around the world are also feeling the seriousness of the climate crisis, and each of them is rushing to announce their own countermeasures. In December 2019, Europe announced the European Green Deal. This is an ambitious plan that sets the goal of 2050 net zero and prepares a number of other related laws and plans. Next. The United States has submitted a resolution for the Green New Deal led by the Democratic Party, and with Joe Biden, the president-elect, pledging to achieve 2050 net zero, the country is also actively discussing ways of responding to the climate crisis. Next. Recently, China and Japan also announced their own targets for achieving carbon neutrality by 2060 and 2050, respectively. Next. Some argue that COVID-19, the pandemic that is now sweeping throughout the world, originated from the climate crisis. The climate crisis is causing enormous economic and human damage through heat waves and floods. It affects both terrestrial and marine vegetation, causing a food crisis. In addition, due to rising sea levels and desertification, a significant number of people are losing the foundation for their living. Next. These climate crises also have a wide range of effects on the habitat of animals. This increases the chances of various species experiencing new contacts and developing new infectious diseases. Of course, this includes humans. Several leading papers point to bats and pangolins as pathways for COVID-19. Next. Now, I would like to talk about the concepts and contents of the Korean Green New Deal. Next. As I mentioned earlier, the climate ecological crisis has increased unprecedented risks, such as COVID-19, leading to a global economic crisis. to overcome climate and economic emergencies. There is a need to adopt a brand new strategy. Next. On this background, on July 14th, the Korean government announced the Korean New Deal Comprehensive Plan. The Green New Deal is a fundamental measure that not only overcomes the economic catastrophe, but also considers the climate and ecological crisis. It is a strategy to transform economic and social structures into low carbon, eco-friendly structures through bold investments. Next. This Korean Green New Deal is called the world's first practical New Deal, in that it contains specific fiscal investment plans from 2020 to 2025 based on the long-term goal of achieving a carbon neutral society. The Green New Deal should not stop in the year 2025. Instead, it should be continuously promoted as a long-term policy for a carbon neutral society. The significance of this Green New Deal is that it takes that first step. Next. The Green New Deal has three major pillars. Number one, establishing a safety net for the climate environment. Number two, transitioning to a low carbon society. And number three, laying the foundation for a green transition economy. In this comprehensive plan, 3 areas have been set according to each direction. Also, 8 projects were selected as sub-projects in each sector. Next. The first direction is building a safety net for the climate environment. This will lead us to convert urban areas, spaces, and living infrastructures to operate in a green way to secure the safety of our living spaces. To this end, projects such as the Green Smart School project to turn public facilities into zero energy facilities, and the Smart Green City project to restore the climate elasticity and the terrestrial, marine, and urban ecosystems will be carried out. The Korean government will also establish a safe water management system that responds to the era of climate change by incorporating smart technologies in our water supply, storage, and flood response systems. Next. Secondly, the Korean government want to take the lead in transitioning to a low carbon society. To this end, efforts to lay the foundation for expanding new and renewable energy and to increase the efficiency of energy management will be made. Korea will make efforts to advance the cars of the future by actively supplying eco-friendly vehicles, including electric and hydrogen vehicles. Next. Finally, we will build a green industry innovation ecosystem. Our government will convert the existing manufacturing industries in Korea, which emit large amounts of pollutants, into eco-friendly industries. Technological development will be supported, and a green finance system will be established to foster these eco-friendly technologies and industries. Next. For reference, this shows how green finance has progressed in Korea. Systematic improvements such as developing a green financial system and creating investment funds related to the New Deal are being promoted. Next. We will invest a total of 73.4 trillion won, or around $7 billion by 2025 into these Green New Deal projects and initiatives. Through this, we expect to create 660,000 jobs and reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 12.3 million tons. Next. And these are the next steps. Next. To ensure that the Green New Deal will go beyond the goals set for 2025 and lead to the realization of a carbon neutral society, we intend to promote 3 key tasks. Next. First, the legislative foundation for the continuous promotion of the Green New Deal will be laid out. The Green New Deal law, which will set up the national vision for a low carbon society, the climate law, which contains practical details of responding to climate change, and the energy transition law, which is intended to support energy conversion. Our government will promote the mid to long-term institutionalization of the Green New Deal based on these 3 pillars. Next. The aim to systematize the Green New Deal in connection with the National Greenhouse Gas Reduction Plan will also be promoted. By December of this year, we will develop a 2050 long-term low greenhouse gas emission development strategy, LEDS, and present the long-term goals of 2050 that Green New Deal should pursue. Also, by analyzing the greenhouse gas reduction effects of the Green New Deal, we will raise the national greenhouse gas reduction targets and create a reflux system that further expands the Green New Deal business to achieve the strengthened target. Next, please. All of these efforts will be pursued with the participation and communication of various sectors. To this end, the Korean government will take the lead to draw cooperative efforts in all sectors of society, including industry, civil society, local governments, and financial institutions. In particular, the Regional New Deal will be one of the pillars of our efforts. Next. But the Korean Green New Deal is a plan in the making. It is an evolving plan that will be continuously enhanced and further developed during its implementation. I would like to emphasize that there is no such thing as one-size-fits-all solution to the climate change. Countries that need to establish a sustainable strategy to overcome COVID-19 have diverse conditions, and Korea will spare no efforts when it comes to lending our support, including through actively sharing our experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kim, for the presentation. Very pleased to learn about the elements and the architecture of the Green New Deal strategy in the Republic of Korea, which is the first one in Asia Pacific. And I hope that this best practice will inspire other countries to do the same. And also, thank you for having the last slide about the need to involve other stakeholders. And this gives me the opportunity to welcome our next speaker, which is again joining us from Republic of Korea, Ms. Jin-hee Park, professor at Dongkook University in Korea, which is very actively participates in stakeholder engagement and governance on various environmental issues, including on climate change. So, Ms. Park, the floor is yours. My suggestion is that we manage your presentation by our side, and you can instruct our staff to go slide after slide to be more smooth. Ms. Park, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you for your introduction. My name is Jin-hee Park. It's an honor to present my talk. As my talk is about participatory governance for the successful Green New Deal. I will the former speaker has told about the all detailed policies of Green New Deal. So I might speak focus on the participatory governance of the for the Green New Deal. So can you skip the slide 11, maybe? Yeah, my preparation of the present are focused all the policies of the Green New Deal. So I will introduce my the participatory governance of the Green New Deal. As you have seen the all policies of Green New Deal, Green New Deal of Korea aims to transit the energy system and the low carbon society. So the during the transition to low carbon society, there are many social conflicts and social debates. So to achieve to achieve the goal of the Green New Deal, we must solve the social debates or the social conflicts. Many interest conflicts will be occurred in Korea. So I suggest we should build the participatory governance for the Green New Deal policy. So with the transition to a carbon neutral society as a target, the goal of the Green New Deal policy is a green transition of infrastructure and energy. And through striving for conservation of natural ecosystems, the policy aims for a sustainable economy based on a decarbonized society. So the goal of the policy is a transition to a low carbon society to respond to climate change. It is the characteristic of the Green New Deal policy, but the transition to a low carbon society leads to a cessation of existing industries fixated on carbon. So unemployment occurs due to policy implementation, such as the closure of old coal power plants, etc. The rugged effect of traditional social technology systems creates obstacles to spreading new technology. There are conflicts with the legislation, resistance from existing carbon-locked industrial ecosystem will occur. So, and the market and institutional environment are unfavorable to new actors such as prosumers continues. Next, please. So during the implementation of the Green New Deal policy, there will be social conflicts. For example, in the process of implementing green energy proliferation project, there are cases in which opposition from local residents is encountered during the construction of solar power and wind power plants. There are many social conflicts in the Korean society now. The spread of green energy is being deterred due to the damage to the local environment caused by power plant construction, such as wind noise. As the example shows, social conflicts occurs in the process of proliferating the green energy and the decentralized renewable energy projects required to transition to low carbon society. There is also difficulty in implementing policies due to a lack of administrative authority required for the transitioning to green energy. Even though public participation is essential in the transition to a low carbon society, the related systems have not been prepared. So next, please. So I see the necessity to build participatory governance is as follows. Various stakeholders participate in the transition to green energy focused on decentralized power sources such as renewable energy. A policy agreement between private, public, and civil social partners is very important to implement the successful Green New Deal policy. In a system with a high proportion of renewable energy, the role of citizen participants in charge of demand response is also important. In the fourth industrial revolution, there are many prosumer who can produce the energy and at the same time consumes the energy. So the role of citizen changed during the Green New Deal policy. So participation of private and civil society is the key to energy efficiency projects such as green remodeling. It is necessary to establish governance through the voluntary participation of various actors other than other government, and also participatory governance through citizen participation. There are also the suggestion for the energy governance. So As climate change response becomes the center of energy policies, there is a growing need to energy governance in which various actors such as the central government, the local government, corporations, citizens, and civic groups pursue police participation and economic cooperation. And next. Now I will talk about the how we can build the participatory governance, and I think the experiences of Korean government can guide us how we can build the participatory governance for the Green New Deal. For example, the Seoul metropolitan government has organized one energy policy committee who are responsible for determining the energy policy for Seoul metropolitan. And the energy policy committee consisted of citizen representatives. The Energy Policy Committee is responsible for planning and implementing energy transition policies through an action planning, and the committee are composed of citizen representatives, 30 citizens from the citizen movement and the NGOs.
Professor Park, if you could summarize because you have 2 more minutes.
Only 2 more? Okay. Yeah, then next. That's okay, then next please. Yeah. Green New Deal policy includes also the participator governance example. For example, the government planned to introduce the resident participation profit sharing system and the public-private cooperative committee for wind power. The public-private cooperative committee is organized to solve the social conflicts about the wind power. And next. And the government has also introduced a policy council. So, for example, the Renewable Energy Policy Council. And this policy council is a place for the determining the policies. And next, please. And I also suggested the decentralization of the decentralization when energy policy making and execution proceed in a centralized manner. The authority and responsibility of local governments are limited. As green energy transition is based on the decentralized energy, the role of local governments is becoming more important. There is a need to systematically strengthen the powers and responsibility of local governments in the area of energy. So to strengthen the power of local government, we should amend the legislation, and we should also improve the coherence between Central Energy Master Plan and Regional Energy Plan. And we should also establish central government, local government governance, and strengthen the capacity of local governments. And the governance also vitalized the decentralized energy system that takes regional differences into consideration. So next, please. The local governments plays now the great role in the Green New Deal. For example, Seoul metropolitan government has planned also the Seoul Green New Deal. And next, please. And Chungnam government has also the Green New Deal project. So I suggest. Although I insisted that the participatory governance is very important and is established to a successful Green New Deal. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Park, and thank you for showing the actual examples of using participatory governance and how important it is to institutionalize participation and make them part of the specific processes. So I would like now to again thank Professor Park, Ms. Kim, and Professor Ulrich for your presentations. And I will move now to some interventions from some speakers from different constituencies that I will invite to take the floor. And given that we have already are behind the schedule and we have a limited time, I would really ask your support, dear speakers, on keeping your interventions in 3 minutes. So I would like to start and welcome our first intervention from the floor, which is Ms. Narges Safa, Chief of International Affairs Division in the Department of Environment of Iran. Ms. Safa.
Hello.
Hello, Ms. Safa.
Can you hear and hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you very much. It's very difficult to make a short intervention, but I try to do it. Dear Mr. Stefanos Fotios, distinguished colleagues, I hope you and your family are well and safe in this strange situation in world. First of all, I would like to thank you, the SCOP Ministry of Environment of Korea, Korea Environment Corporation, and also Seoul Initiative Network for organizing the 15th Policy Consultation Forum despite the limitation of the COVID-19 pandemic. Although the global situation is not favorable due to the loss of many people and the spread of the disease, I hope that after the eradication of COVID, we will face a more different, greener, and sustainable world. The goal of this forum is to find opportunities for green recovery from the COVID-19 in the context of the Green New Deal and growth strategy in support of environment-related SDGs. As you know, green and inclusive recovery is indeed a way forward, but deploying this purpose is a prerequisite. To remind you, this year start with a stark statement of our environmental challenges. The World Economic Forum report showed for the first time that the top 5 global risks were all environmental, and the COVID-19 represented embodiment of the collision between our natural systems and human systems. This fundamentally requires a solution rooted in the collaboration of all stakeholders, including the private sectors. So it needs actively working with them in transforming the markets and economic systems required to tackle the key drivers of environmental degradation and also to reverse unsustainable global trend and to extend the delivery of global environment benefits. It's a huge support for shifting towards more sustainable forms of production and consumption. In the Islamic Republic of Iran, like other countries in the West and Central of Asia, we are facing some economic environmental challenges due to climate change, such as sand and dust, drought, desertification, forest fires, and floods. Although the government has designed many mid and long-term plans for adaptation and mitigation goals, but needs to engage the private sector more and more. Meanwhile, the outbreak of the COVID-19 is becoming a deterrent factor in slowing down the government investment to reduce emissions and build the necessary infrastructure because of addressing the people's health and livelihood for the transition from the COVID-19 crisis. The complexity of challenges in world and Iran, like climate change, mega pollutions, COVID-19, and also political sanctions are worrying, but we could benefit incredibly taking advantage of science, technology, and the different level of the community, such as youth, for a better future. Fortunately, investing in green jobs and also creating green startups, in particular by specialist youth, are growing in my country. And due to the COVID-19 outbreak, the rate of this growth has accelerated. Although the economic downturn caused by...
If you can start concluding.
Sure. Although the economic downturn caused by COVID-19 has damaged the economic sectors, the recent situation has provided a good opportunity for some sectors and startups to present and develop digital infrastructure for green recovery. This recovery allows us to transition into a cleaner and build back better. Iran, like many developing countries, needs to invest in green jobs, involve more private sectors, and account for climate risk in all financial and policy decisions more than before. My person is longer, but thank you very much for giving this opportunity to deliver it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Safa, and it's really encouraging to listen that the call for green growth is not coming only from industrialized economies, but from developing economies like Iran. Our following speaker is Dr. Yang-Woo Park from the South Asia Cooperative Environment Program, which is also my former boss when I was working in UNEP. And if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Park, I think you were the senior official in the Ministry of Environment in Korea when the green growth strategy adopted back in 2005. Dr. Park, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Dr. Stefanos Fatiu, Director of EDD ESCOP, and colleagues, experts, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to first express my sincere appreciation to ESCOP and Ministry of Environment of Republic of Korea and Korea Environment Corporation for organizing this timely forum and inviting me as a panelist. And as Dr. Fatiu mentioned, it is very personally moment for me participating in this forum because I was the senior officer meeting chair when we negotiate Seoul Initiative on Green Growth at ESCOP AMSET meeting in 2005 held in Seoul, Korea. So since Dr. Stefanos very well illustrated macro perspectives on why COVID-19 and how to overcome this crisis and make environmentally sustainable development and low carbon and carbon neutral economy possible, and also the circular economy. I will just skip that, but I will just focus on the importance of the participatory governance system. As presented by the speakers, developing comprehensive Green New Deal strategy and the successful implementation of the strategies and establishing participatory and inclusive government system is important. However, it is one thing and relatively easy to make strategies, but it is another issue and more important that active participation of all people and stakeholders, because at the end of the day, it is the people who take action and make differences. As we all witnessed and learned lessons of the importance of participation of people and stakeholders from COVID-19, in countries where all stakeholders act together, COVID-19 infection has been better controlled and slowed the infection. But in countries with less participation of all stakeholders are facing more serious challenges. So now we are promoting participatory governance to successfully, efficiently, and effectively implement and disseminate Green New Deal, because we strongly believe that unless all stakeholders actively participate and take responsibilities and accountability, government cannot achieve SDGs and also overcome the crisis like COVID-19. No matter how good Green New Deal strategy is and how much money is invested for the Green New Deal stimulus package. In this regard, I'm with the speakers, I'm echoing the speakers proposing establishing the participatory governance. In addition to what has been mentioned by the speakers, I would like to raise the following questions and propose the following. First, do many of ASCAP member countries have capacity to implement Green New Deal strategies once it is developed? The one that developed in and implemented in Korea and EU. They may be able to develop strategies, but do they have capacities to implement, execute? And so if not, why not? Do member countries have necessary resources, such as human, technical, and financial resources to deliver the strategy? As you heard, Korea...
Can I ask you to start summarizing? We have at least another 10 speakers. I'm sorry for this, but
okay,
it's really getting out of time. Thank you.
Okay. So I think we have to discuss about what mechanisms do we need to narrow the gap between the plan and implementation. And also in relation to Seoul Initiative, I would like to, if it is already done, then disregard my comments, but if not, hasn't, let's have in-depth discussions on lessons learned from 15 years of Seoul Initiative implementation. And based on this discussion, discuss and identify how to further improve and strengthen Seoul Institute to cope with issues raised by COVID-19 and to assist countries to develop Green New Deal strategies appropriate and adaptable to the countries and successfully deliver Green New Deal. I think today ASCAP just opened the door for this process. And lastly, establish participatory and inclusive governance system at the planning, implementation, and monitoring processes to minimize social divide and conflict and to strengthen effectiveness and efficiency of Green New Deal strategy implementation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Park, and thank you for saying that we need to use the existing experience and sometimes not reinvent the wheel. We have two more speakers. I will ask them to help us here with time. Please don't take more than 2 to 3 minutes because we have also another lineup of about 7, 8 people that waiting to speak. So I'll invite now the country representative of the Global Green Growth Institute in Cambodia, Ms. Caroline Caesar, for a short intervention. You have to unmute yourself.
Muted. Hi, yes, I was told to speak in the second part, the second dialogue.
Okay. You want to wait for the second dialogue?
As you prefer, it was more a concrete example.
Okay, so let's go to Mr. Nalin Rohana, representing the Waste Management Authority of Sri Lanka.
Yes. Hi, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, let me to thank the UN ESCAP and the Seoul Initiative Network, especially for Mr. Stefan for inviting me to take part of this important forum today. Actually, as we know, the COVID-19 impact is enormous and is still unfolding. As a country, Sri Lanka, now government of Sri Lanka has now in preparation and introducing of economic recovery plan and economic stimulus package, introducing such system to overcome this present pandemic situation that we have faced. And actually, this is really new to us, and even we want to learn more on these areas. Actually, this kind of international forums really helpful to understand the experiences of other countries, how they have addressed this pandemic situation. So as we know, actually this pandemic situation has already affected many disciplines in the country, like agriculture sector, construction, tourism, environmental, and trade. Every sector has drastically affected. So coming to the environmental discipline of the country, some consequences are in positive and as well as negative, and temporary and as well as a long-term impact also there. So therefore, if I itemize, if I emphasize some kind of these consequences, like the change of the biodiversity, changing of the global, changing of the carbon dioxide emission within the local level, and air pollution, water pollution, waste management, those are the main, the significant areas that actually affected due to these COVID-19 conditions. So as I elaborate my field of work in that waste management, so now every local authorities and all other authorities, the big problem that they have is destroying of this medical waste. That is become a big challenge for them under this COVID-19 pandemic situation. And not only that, actually, there's some positive effect as well, especially during the lockdown period. The 40% garbage generation has reduced during last the few months, especially that the lockdown period. And other effect is especially the recycling market. The recycling market also has reduced drastically. That is basically dropping of the market price of the recyclable items. And not only that, actually, the single-use plastic quantity of the daily waste stream has also increased significantly. So those are the main the effect that we have experienced so far under the COVID-19 pandemic. So actually, as I explained, you all authorities now working hardly to overcome this COVID-19 pandemic and aftermath of this COVID-19 pandemic. And actually, as a country, we like to share the experiences of other country to address this problem in a better way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Nalin, and thank you for bringing an additional issue of the waste management. Now we will go to the second round of interventions. So we have two very capable colleagues, and I will ask them to help us a little bit with the time. If you could sort a little bit your presentations. We'll start with my colleague, Ms. Hannah Mutoni-Ryder, which is a senior regional climate advisor in ESCAP. And she has researched actually the recovery packages of the countries in Asia Pacific and will share her findings if and how much green and climate compatible are. Hannah, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, DG Fosio, and thank you, distinguished guests, for this opportunity to share with you. Let me just check that my screen is not actually sharing just yet. 1 second.
Anna, we are sharing your slides for you, actually.
Oh, are you? Oh, okay, sure. That's
Is it being seen at the moment?
You're welcome to. I can also share them myself. Oh, okay. Great.
Do you see it now?
Wonderful. That's perfect. Okay, so I want to say thank you very much for the invitation to share this work. Of course, I'm going to try to go through it quite quickly because we don't have much time. So let me begin with the reason why this research, why I carried out this research, why UNESCAP wanted me to carry out this research on what has the green recovery actually look like, and looking across the region for the evidence and the examples, and identifying where the challenges still remain. If you could go to the next slide, please. So the aim of the research was to look at what we call the sweet spot for green recovery and green growth. So where countries are not just taking account of COVID-19, trying to respond to COVID-19 with the fiscal and economic and social measures, but also taking into account the poor people in ESCAP countries and climate change and mitigation actions. Next slide, please. We did two types of analysis to be able to understand what is happening in the Asia Pacific region right now. The first analysis was to look at financing. So we looked at what are Asia Pacific countries spending on COVID-19 action now, and how does that compare in terms of amounts and volumes to the spending on climate change action and mitigation adaptation, which has been expressed in the nationally determined contributions, NDCs. What we found, next slide, what we found was that the total amount of spending that countries have put aside for COVID-19, Asia Pacific countries, equals around $5,521 billion US. Now that's calculated, it's around 7% of GDP. Now unfortunately, most Asia Pacific countries have not identified the complete cost of the mitigation adaptation actions in their NDCs, but 15 have. So we looked at the comparison between the mitigation and adaptation costs and the COVID-19 costs for those 15 countries, and we found that they were broadly comparable. On the other hand, when you looked into the detail and country by country, there was only one country, Singapore, for which COVID-19 costs were larger than the mitigation adaptation costs identified. For 6 of the others, the COVID-19 costs could not even cover the climate change actions, either adaptation or mitigation, which indicates that green recovery is going to be much more, requires a lot more effort. And there's also a major issue in terms of fiscal space. If countries are spending on COVID-19 right now, there is a big looming crisis, the next grey rhino in terms of mitigation and adaptation, green action, green recovery. How are countries planning for that? So we identified this key opportunity, number one, for green recovery through this initial first type of analysis. It's going to be very important to avoid double spending, and the efficiency of a green recovery is a great opportunity and very important for low-income countries in particular. Go to the next slide. And I mentioned low-income countries in particular because we also found there's a key correlation between the amount that countries have to spend on climate change and GDP. So lower income countries in the region do have less to spend, have been spending less on COVID-19. So that means that those countries are going to be facing more challenges when it comes to spending on climate change. So this is something we must be preparing for, and it's really important to take advantage of the opportunity for green recovery right now. The second type of analysis, let's move to the next one, was went in depth now to look at the COVID-19 actions of the Asia Pacific countries. And we found, first of all, very important to recognize 46 of the Asia Pacific countries have already introduced economic and social measures to respond to COVID-19, and in particular, a number of schemes which are aimed at and are likely to help, the majority are likely to help vulnerable people, the poorest people in the economy. So a number of social safety nets, income protection measures, also measures for increasing access to social services. We see a lot of effort across Asia Pacific countries in this regard. So then we asked the question, well, how do these compare to the climate change and mitigation actions, the green actions, which are in the NDCs? Next slide. And we looked at the six different sectors which typically are covered in the NDCs, and the results were very, very interesting.
You have 3 more minutes, Hannah.
Okay, yeah, I'll make it. Next slide, please. So we did find some overlap. Very interestingly, we found an additional 111 additional measures relating to climate change, 58% of which were covered already by the NDCs. So they had already been identified in the NDCs. There was an overlap there for 58% of that. That's the 65 measures, category 2, you can see there. But there were also an additional number of measures, the 46 sweet spot, what we call sweet spot measures, which had not been in NDCs at all. These were new, innovative measures, which is very interesting. And finally, we also found a number of measures in the NDCs which had not come to fruition, which had not been brought in, although they were relevant to COVID-19 and could be helpful for COVID-19, they had not been brought in. So we also then looked at the specific sectors. Next slide. And we found, again, between the 6 different sectors, there was a range of different experiences. We found in particular, there were some very strong new measures for disaster risk management, less so, for example, in air travel and tourism, and land use and forestry was also lacking in some ways. And energy was also somewhat surprising. There were 15 countries had not introduced any policies on energy, on addressing the energy sector in terms of green recovery, even though energy is, for Asia-Pacific countries, the biggest sector in terms of emitting carbon. So the practice in terms of the different sectors was also very varied. And last but not least, next slide, we also found the practice for countries very varied. Whereas one country, New Zealand, which has brought in actions across all sectors. But if you look in depth again, 5 of those areas, for 5 of those sectors, all of the New Zealand actions are all new. Only one of them was already encompassed in the NDC. That means that, again, there seems to be some disconnect between different countries around the COVID-19 actions and what's in NDCs. And we also saw some good news in terms of the biggest emitters, India, China, and Japan in the region are taking action, although, again, of course, they could do more, and that's the idea with this analysis. And again, Korea also leading there, Georgia also leading. So we're able to identify the leaders and also those who are having challenges, and we found 19 countries in particular facing the biggest challenges in the region. So 1 minute, last but not least, why is this happening and what can we do about it? So I think the key question is how we identified effectively 4 different categories of countries, countries that may be lacking in terms of ambition and bringing together the COVID-19 and NDC policies. This is very important, the coordination, the mainstreaming. Others who, a number of countries that can be role models for others. And we also found countries that are clearly lacking finance or government capacity to pull through the green recovery. So this identification is very important because it can help us to identify what is the future need in terms of ensuring a green recovery. So I will finish it there. I also just want to mention this policy brief. This analysis will be coming up and will be shared, will be published in the coming weeks. And it also identifies some very useful case studies, which I would encourage. I hope those case studies will be shared through this forum as well, again, to provide inspiration and to encourage more countries in the region to do as much as they can for the green recovery. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share this information.
Thank you, Hannah, and thank you for outlining not only what is happening, but you mentioned some measures as potential measures that they can help. from the COVID. And I think it's a good optimism that we have there. Although not many things are happening, there's a good potential. And that brings me to the best position to say what could be the best potential ever than the youth. So it's an extremely pleasure now to welcome the next speaker from this session, Ms. Fifteenth Iskandar, which is the founder of the Asia Pacific Climate Action that concerns achieving sustainable development goals, especially climate action, tackling marine pollution, and supporting nature conservation. Ms. Fifteenth, the floor is yours. If you could do it in 5 to 6 minutes, we will appreciate.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stefanos, for the time. Good afternoon, everyone. Greetings from Indonesia. Yeah, my name is Fifteenth. I'm currently a project leader in Asia Pacific Climate Project, and it's a pleasure for me to be here in the forum representing youth to share the perspective according to this topic discussion today. And next, please, without further ado, this COVID-19 situations is hitting us suddenly, and yeah, it started in the earlier of 2020, which where everything is started, and this situation is compelling us, all of the people, to adapt in a new normal life, which is we need to obey the health protocol, we need to do physical distancing, and of course this affects many aspects of our life, whether it's economic, political, even in environment. And as the youth that work in the local communities, I am really I can feel that this situation is really limiting us to conduct such as offline activities, because the situation is forcing us to choose alternative way about how to conduct in environmental activism in the pandemic situation itself. And we need to choose alternative way where we need to shift the offline project into the online project itself. And that's how the situations actually work right now. Next, please. And jump for a little bit in a government itself. And we know that government all around the world right now are urgently pulling together vast national budgets to sustain the economies that are on the verge of the collapsing. Ahead of spending this $1 billion, the choices of the government make now will determine whether the pandemic serves to delay or accelerate a low carbon transitions, which this Indonesia already flexing the example too with the efforts to create a low carbon future, where just now Indonesian government already announced for financial support in solar power project to drive a green economic recovery called Surya Nusantara Plan. And I believe all of the world leaders right now are working to do the same thing, and Korea already showing the great example also in a Green New Deal itself. And next, please. And how about the youth itself? How can they involved in this post-COVID-19 green recovery? In my perspective, I have two point of view here, which youth can involve. The first one in a local side or in a local level, which youth need to re-engaging again within field activities, or we can call it offline activities, because I believe that most of the youth right now already shifting their project or program into more online based program. Then when the pandemic is over, they need to rearrange again and re-engage again with their activities. And then youth need to rebuild again the power and the involvement in the movement itself. This might be quite challenging because we maybe don't know how to start it or where to start it, or even maybe in the new world situation will be providing more challenges than we expected. But we don't know yet. And the role of the youth in the officials, or I can say this high level side, the first one about assisting the law regulations that are ratified by the government. As the part of the community, the biggest portion of the community, the government should see this youth not only as an object, but also an active party, which they can contribute to assisting and guiding the law and regulation itself. And then what important is about involving the youth in a policy making recommendations. And this forum already showing a great example to involve youth in their perspective and amplify their voices. And that's what it's supposed to be. Next, please. And actually those both roles will have two-way interactions, which I can say that when the government wants to implement the law or regulations, of course, the government needs a public trust and needs a public support, and youth as the part of the community itself that have their networking, they have their community organization and movements, they will, of course, will definitely supporting the green recovery efforts that are delivered by the government itself, and that's why the youth support is important and needed to help to strengthen the green recovery process. And beside of that, youth can be a role model for the sustainable behavior, because when we talk about the green recovery, it's not only about spatial planning or land use or green energy, renewable energy, but also the circular economy that have waste management inside it. And yeah, youth can play a role to promoting the sustainable behavior, which is it can start from the individual level, to involve as a small portion in the circular economy to become a sustainable and responsible consumer or producer. But other than that, there will be many ways for us to promoting the sustainable behavior itself. And yeah, for the last thing, I believe that we can work together to supporting the green recovery efforts and create a better world. Thank you. I'll back to you, Mr. Stefano.
Thank you very much, Fitria. Thank you very much for ending for the need of every one of us, I think, to be a role model and walk the talk of sustainability. I know colleagues were a little bit out of time, but we had a good presentation. So let's give another 10 to 12 minutes to 4 more speakers we have for some short interventions. And let me start before we close with Mr. Safran Mina, Director of Development and Communications of Earthline. Mr. Mina, you have the floor for 2 to 3 minutes maximum, please.
Thank you, Stefanos, and I hope you guys can hear me. And it's very nice to get invitation to be part of this wonderful forum. And let me start with Dr. Ulrich, what he was really saying when he started. COVID-19 is not going to be the last pandemic that the generation will face. And would like to reiterate that Asia Pacific is the 60% of the population is young people. And correctly, Fatih, the previous speaker, pointed out is that young people should be involved at all forms of norms in implementation and recovery process of COVID-19. Because I strongly believe that a recovery shouldn't be without young people, and then recovery should not be like a specific agenda for young people. We should recover with the young people, because they are the people who really going to strive forward in the region, especially with the largest population of young people. As seriously we must take COVID-19, we must not forget, climate change is happening too. And the environmental crisis is serious as how we fight COVID-19. And what we can see right now is an unprecedented natural disasters at the same time happening. And how we can really go to Kim's presentation before, she really connected the health issue with the COVID climate change, where climate change could be a cause, like could be causes for future pandemics that really help, that would be an effect where the public health would be at a risk. So when you talk about recovery, so let's not what in the past, and most of the things that we really don't want to see, just not a green wash. How projects and all the other implementations has been done, rather a sustainable recovery that enables youth to get involved, especially at the local level, especially at the grassroots level, especially at the community level. If you break down the implementation hierarchy in a country, provincial level, how young people can get involved. For example, if a country is really when allocating the budget to revolve from the recovery, they should also be a focus that to make sure that they have young people part of it, not just have an agenda for the young people, but have young people throughout the process, so that new ideas, innovation, because if you take the global trends that we are technological and all the innovation and entrepreneurs who are growing up are mostly young people, doesn't per se have to be they haven't been per se named as, okay, you're a youth entrepreneur or something like that, but it has to be framed in a way how it says, okay, young so entrepreneurs that are coming up and growing up. So a recovery process should really enable youth from all the regions, especially in the region of Asia Pacific, which has the most large sector of young people, that be able to be part of the implementation. At the same time, I also believe
this is very clear, Safran. Thank you. Thank you. If you can conclude.
Yeah. So I strongly believe that the role of young people, apart from public demonstration, should also be having a seat at the table and being also deciding with the governors, with the mayors, in order that we can really provide strong proposals that will help climate solutions, and then really we can win this race about climate crisis, if we can also win the crisis for global health.
Thank you, Safran. So let me give the floor now for the next 2 minutes to Mr. Emek Asirov from the Ministry of Economy of Kyrgyzstan.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear and see you.
Okay, my name is Emek Asirov. I'm from Ministry of Economy of the Kyrgyz Republic, Strategic Planning Division. So I would like to inform about two aspects of green economy, which we are trying to put in Kyrgyz Republic. So I will share information about long-term strategy and now short-term. So regarding to long-term strategy, we're trying to launch an e-mobility concept in Kyrgyz Republic, because around 95% of electricity come from hydropower. So for us, it's more suitable to promoting EV mobility and carbon neutrality strategy in our country. So we make already some steps for this policy. We make custom duty for EV 0%, and VAT also 0%. Also, we put most cheapest price for electricity, especially for electric vehicles. It's around maybe 1 or 2% for 1 kilowatt hours. So for us, we're putting the goal to reach around 2 or 3% of all transport sectors during the 5 years. So we're thinking that will give a big stimulus for economy also, and for people, and for also environment. This is for shortly, briefly, for long-term strategy. And about short-term, how to recover the lockdown after this coronavirus situation. So we're thinking that we will support the small and medium business through giving the micro loan for people. So, but we're facing big issues, like Professor Waltz mentioned, that the high cost for capital, because even we're trying to spread these credits for people through financial institutions, they're asking for the service around 5-7% for each credit. So it's making quite expensive for people. And now we're trying and find out the way how to make this microloan cheaper for people, because we're thinking that small and medium business can help and can drive, even maybe slowly, but will give effect for maybe in 2-3 years ahead. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and nice to see that these messages for green recovery, they go from the east to the Central Asia. We had also Miss Caroline Caesar from GGGI, the country representative of Cambodia. So Caroline, would you like to take your 2 minutes now, please?
Thank you so much. So yes, GGI support to COVID recovery in Cambodia centers on the garment sector. So the garment sector in Cambodia represents 800,000 jobs, so it's quite significant in a country of 16 million people. And it represents 66% of industrial GDP. The sector has suffered a lot from COVID due to supply chain disruptions and a drop in demand. And this has led hundreds of factories to either close down or suspend their activities. Now, our research shows that there's strong potential for resource efficiency to stimulate productivity and competitiveness of these factories. So we saw that as an ideal entry point for green recovery. And I think that echoes with some of the points that were made earlier by Stefanos and by Dr. Kim. So according to our economic modeling, investing in resource efficiency across the manufacturing sector can create around 500,000 jobs, reduce emissions by 3.4 million tons, and significantly cut production costs for the factories. So we set up the Switch Garment project that just started. This is funded by the EU, and we're executing it together with GRS, an NGO, and the Garment Manufacturers Association here. It's focused on energy efficiency and clean energy in manufacturing. And so we're looking at improving the policy and regulatory framework for clean energy in manufacturing. We're looking at supporting these factories in accessing finance for clean energy interventions, and also doing a lot of work on outreach and training of these factories to build their understanding of the business opportunities that are there in resource efficiency. Also working with the international brands who have signed up to international climatic commitments and the RE100 and different pacts, etc., to leverage their influence over their suppliers so that these suppliers can clean up their production processes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Caroline, for bringing also the need to have a sectoral focus in all these approaches and not leave it just on generic approaches. It's my pleasure now to invite the last speaker, but not the least, Mr. Seung-Hoon Lee, representing the Korea Environment Corporation, which is a main partner on the SYNC initiative. Mr. Lee, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Okay, Stefanos. Okay, I just get the quick comments. Okay, my name is Seung-Hoon Lee from the KECO. Since year 2008, more than 1,400 government officers from the 38 countries, members countries, participate in the forums for discuss about the responding to the environment-related SDG in Asia-Pacific region. Also, in order to support the implementation of the SDG activity in Asia-Pacific region, 38 network pilot project has been carried out. Of course, that's including dispatched expert for the providing technical advice, etc. Okay, I just want to let you know that as you are aware of, we are still open year 2022 SYNC network project proposal from various areas. So if we have any kind of the project proposal related to the Green New Deal, which you are talking about today, please let us know. I strongly believe that every proposal could be a good opportunity for green recovery from the COVID-19 in your country. Finally, our secretariat is always open to your new idea and comment. So feel free to contact us and share your idea to make the SYNC program more significant and valuable. Thank you, Doctor.
Mr. Lee, thank you very much, and thank you for this openness to new ideas. I think that the countries can take the opportunity, put their head together, and I think that a very good outcome could come out of this meeting. And let me take the opportunity to thank the KECO's contribution and continued support for the Seoul Initiative project, a support that has made this initiative, as I said in the very beginning, a long-standing initiative. So we have reached the end of the program. I'm sorry from my side as a moderator, I didn't manage to keep the time, but I want to thank all the participants and the speakers forum today. And I hope that for one more time, the forum helped to accumulate knowledge and share experiences. All the material and the recordings will be available on the website. And I think the colleagues are also sharing a link. And also, you will see in your chat that there's a survey on today's forum with the link that you can have, and we would appreciate if you click the link on the chat box and do the survey. So let me conclude by saying that the Seoul Initiative Network on Green Growth Project has implemented for 15 years I think it was one of the first times that the green branding came to the UN. After the green growth, we had a number of other green initiatives, including, of course, the green economy, the green jobs, but I think the green growth was really the pioneering. And the Seoul Initiative project has played a very important role in distributing the green growth strategy and sustainable development in Asia and the Pacific through the various activities, through the pilot projects, through the policy dialogue and the forum. And I think that it made green growth to be in the agenda of every major meeting in Asia Pacific, being or being not for environment. The project that we are running now is on the third phase, and the third phase is ending this year. And right now we are in the process of designing the next phase, which will continue for the next 5 years. And I want to thank the Ministry of Environment in Korea that has confirmed continued support for this project. So based on the outcomes of the previous phase, the next phase will continuously support member states in achieving sustainable development goals and implementing policies for green recovery. Again, I do appreciate the Korean government for the promising continued support for the Seoul Initiative. And also I would like to let you know that in a very few days, on 9 and 10 of December, the Committee on Environment and Development will take place as a hybrid virtual meeting. And all member states of ESCAP and civil society are invited and will gather to discuss future efforts to respond to climate change, ecosystem health, clean air, and sustainable cities. And I'm taking the opportunity to ask the member states of ESCAP, if they haven't registered so far for the committee, please register. We invite you to follow the discussions, and further information will be shared on this event website. So I see you in December at the Committee on Environment and Development and in further meetings. Also, let me take the opportunity to thank very much the colleagues that they have made this meeting happen from our side. Eun-jung and Annie, that they are in this meeting, and they have done all the valuable efforts to make this meeting happen. Thank you very much and have a nice afternoon.